Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Late Saturday night, Coach Lincoln Riley, USC, pitching a shutout against Utah State. Now, to the USC fans, I apologize. We're not doing an instant reaction late Saturday night, doing it Sunday morning, but I felt like I get the best, analysis, you might say, waking up, watching the football game again. That's exactly what we did. I just start with this. We always do instant reactions to USC football. It's so much better when I can drink a cup of coffee Sunday morning and watch a good product on the field, especially on the defensive side of the football. You saw it again. I mean, again, it's Utah State in week 2. This is what this USC defense should look like. It didn't look like this when they played group of 5 teams the last 2 years. This USC defense, at least in my opinion, continues to look different. They look faster. They look more physical. And I think most importantly, they look disciplined. I mean, the run fits continue to be really good. You look at the secondary, very, very limited throwing windows for the quarterback, and we ain't missing tackles. I mean, we kind of said this during the offseason. If USC just fixes the simple stuff on defense, this defense can take a massive step in the right direction. Not only are they fixing the simple stuff, they're starting to do a lot of the simple stuff extremely well. And I think that's why you're seeing a complete transformation of this USC defense. Want to get into couple of notes on both sides of the football. I want to spend more of the time on this USC defense. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the USC fans, one, the amount of support y'all continue to show, it's been amazing. I can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But much more importantly, would love to hear your takeaways, how you guys are feeling about this USC team. You look at the scope of the Big Ten right now, right? Ohio State looks pretty damn good. Oregon continues to mess around with teams they shouldn't mess around with. Penn State messes around with Bowling Green. You look at Michigan getting absolutely road graded by Texas. This USC team in the scope of the Big Ten is a much bigger player than a lot of people gave them credit for heading into 2024. So without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's start on the defensive side of the football. And I want to start with, again, a little bit more of a schematic approach. And that is Coach Stanton Lynn continues to just do an excellent job scheming up this defense. I mean, every single down, you're getting a different look, you're getting a different pressure package, you're getting a different cover package, and you can tell that it is really messing with opposing quarterbacks. This is the exact reason Coach Lynn or Coach Riley brings Coach Lynn to USC. That NFL kind of defensive coordinator, it's been proven to work at the collegiate level, right? It obviously worked with Michigan. It's certainly working with USC, and the complexity of the USC defense. You can tell this Utah State offensive line just doesn't know who to block. I mean, it's so many different looks. You don't know who's coming on the pass rush. And not only is the complexity at a very high level, I continue to be extremely impressed with how well this USC defense has grasped Coach Dan Lynn's system. Because the biggest growing pain you normally see with these kind of defensive coordinators is, all right, we're playing better football, but we still are struggling with some of the communication. We're still blowing coverages because it's a complex system. USC's not doing that. I mean, how many blown coverages did we see against Utah State? I think the number is 0. I mean, there were really not bad run fits. There were not blown coverages. Everybody knew what they were doing on the football field. That's probably what stands out to me the most, is how smooth this transition has been for Coach Lynn. And I think one thing that fires me up is you saw Coach Lynn was animated, and he's not a very animated guy normally. He was animated when Utah State missed that kick at the end of the fourth quarter to get the shutout for USC. There's a little bit of a different standard within this USC football program, and I quite frankly think it starts with Coach Lincoln Riley. You go back 12 months ago when USC was playing sloppy football against San Jose State or Arizona State, and Coach Lincoln Riley would get up in front of the media and say, hey, I'm just happy we're winning football games. It's hard to win in this league. And to me, that always frustrated me because I knew you're not playing your best football and you seem to be okay with it last year. And then when you went up and played good teams, you got beat because you weren't playing good football. Now it's, hey, we just won 48-0. What does Coach Lincoln Riley get up there and say, hey, yeah, good win. We got a lot to clean up. We can still be a better football team. That's the type of language that you want to hear from this USC coaching staff because they know how good they can be. So that's one of the things that stands out. And to get into the players that really impressed me on the defensive side of the football, I continue to start with Eric Gentry. He's a guy that, and for the USC fans who've been rocking with the boys all summer, we were all talking about this kid in terms of, hey, we've seen the flashes from him, but we don't think he was necessarily utilized to the best of his ability under Coach Alex Grinch. To me, it seems like he's completely unlocked. Like, we are moving Eric Gentry around. We're playing him at off-ball linebacker. We're playing him as an overhang linebacker. We're playing him on the edge as an edge rusher. And because you're getting Eric Gentry in these positions that he can be successful, he's flying around the football field. I swear in that first half, it seemed like Eric Gentry was around the football every single play that was made. He's just long. He's disruptive. He can do so many different things. And again, what I think is a sign of a really good football coach is looking at your talent and saying, how can we get this talent best situated to have an impact on the football game? And I think Dan Lynn's doing a phenomenal job with Eric Gentry. A couple other guys that stood out. Devin Tompkins, again, this was a guy that we talked about him kind of emerging in fall camp. He was, probably a better basketball player than he was a football player when he committed to USC out of high school, has continued to transform the body. He's moving all along the defensive line. He's got tremendous length, but more importantly, power in his hands. Like, you can tell he's taken that step from a physical maturation standpoint. He's going to be a difference maker for this USC team on the defensive line throughout 2024. And you're seeing all sorts of guys, at least in my opinion, step up on the defensive line. Our biggest concern was, what is the depth going to look like for USC on the defensive line? You're seeing all these guys take steps. Braylon Shelby clearly has taken a step. Anthony Lucas, I think Anthony Lucas is probably the best defensive lineman on this USC football team right now. But you look at Kobe Pepe, you look at Devin Tompkins, all of these guys seem to be putting it together. So, yes, we had some question marks going into 2024 in terms of how many bodies do they trust on the defensive line. Throughout 2 weeks, you're starting to see that number continue to grow. And I think that's a huge storyline for USC, especially going into the Big Ten. USC's defense, it continues to, again, really just impress me. Now, you go to the offensive side of the football. I got to just send an apology out. Going into the season, I kept saying I want to see 4 wide receiver sets because I thought that's where the difference makers are for USC. It was in the wide receiver room. And although that's probably true, I didn't give nearly enough credit to these USC tight ends, not only for being difference makers in the passing attack, they blocked their tails off. And I think what really could work for USC in a couple of these football games as they go into conference play is, look, a lot of teams want to stay in that nickel package. If you play 2 tight ends and teams want to stay in the nickel, like, you have the opportunity to really establish the run. That's what USC did last night against Utah State. Utah State wanted to stay with the nickel and only play 2 linebackers. If you play 2 tight ends and they're going to stay in nickel, go after them in the run game because that just favors you. And then if they want to put a 3rd linebacker on the football field, I think these USC tight ends are much better as difference makers in the passing game than I think I give them credit for. And so I think these tight ends have massively helped USC. That's about as much as a 2 tight end set as I've ever seen Coach Lincoln Riley use. And he's doing it because these tight ends are guys not only run blocking, but they can be difference makers in the passing attack as well. Miller Moss on the stat sheet, it wasn't necessarily a quote unquote Heisman performance for Miller Moss. But again, we kind of said this might be how USC's offense looks a little bit more in 2024. You still scored 48 points. So if you're Lincoln Riley, I don't care how the points are coming. I don't think Miller Moss gives a dang about how the points are coming. If you can put up 48 to 50 points consistently, you're going to win a lot of football games, especially with what this USC defense looks like. Miller Moss should have had a better stat line. I don't think his pass catchers had a very good game in terms of catching the football. That's okay. We kind of know we are still young at you in the wide receiver room. They're still developing. A lot of these were, at least in my mind, focus drops. I thought Miller Moss looked really good. You got 2 running backs in Woody Marks, and I think Quentin Joyner is going to continue to earn the trust of this USC coaching staff is probably how I would describe it. Look, Woody Marks is going to be the guy. He is a veteran. You saw him get out of the backfield and be a pass catcher as well. Quentin Joyner has a ton of juice. We all know he's a 10-7 guy in the 100-meter out of high school, but you're starting to see him run a little bit more physically as well as he continues to mature and I think earn the trust of the coaching staff. I think you're going to see that running back one, running back 1B. And I think that helps for USC because I think USC is going to run the football a lot more than they were in 2023. So you want 2 to 3 running backs that you can really trust. I thought Brian Jackson ran the football really well too. I think this USC team, yes, it looks different without Caleb Williams on offense. It's much more efficient. I think they didn't punt the ball a single time with Miller Moss at quarterback. Yeah, you had a few drops. You had a fumble with Lake McCree. But outside of that, it was really clean football. If you're a USC fan, again, it's against Utah State, but we just saw Notre Dame lose at home to NIU as 28-point favorites. We just saw Alabama mess around with USF. We just saw Penn State mess around with Bowling Green. Anything can happen on every single Saturday in the sport of college football. USC came in, and it was kind of a letdown spot right after a massive win Sunday night, short rest, playing Utah State, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Like, there was a lot of reason for USC to come out here, not play a very clean and shouldn't say competitive, but not play a very clean and energetic football game. We saw USC arguably play better than what they did against LSU. And I think that should fire up a lot of USC fans. We'll dive into some of the film specifically on defense a little bit later in the week. Wanted to hop on, give you guys some of my thoughts and opinions. We'll cut it there, though. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.